Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, the word impeachment, it was something you didn't hear very often. Of course, it's happened a couple times in history, but for the most part, it's been a little bit of a taboo subject. Maybe that's not the right word, but for the most part, for most issues in politics, impeachment was sort of a last resort option, you know, like a last option. Nowadays, it's impeachment after impeachment. Some justified, some not, and some extremely justified. Very much necessary. This one right here, this one's necessary, along with the whole Fani Willis impeachment, which unfortunately I don't think is actually going to happen, even though it probably should. But this one, there's really no question. State Republicans in New Mexico are now pushing ahead an effort to impeach New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham after she attempted to use her state executive power to forcefully impose a gun ban on the citizens of New Mexico, depriving them of their Second Amendment rights. First, she got blocked by multiple sheriffs in her state. Now she's getting impeached. The political fallout here is epic and totally deserved and justified. Let me update you guys on what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's the headline from Santa Fe, New Mexican. Republicans push ahead with attempt to impeach governor over Albuquerque gun ban. A pair of Republican lawmakers are pushing ahead with an effort to impeach Democratic Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham over a gun ban that has been called unconstitutional and thrust New Mexico into the national debate on gun violence. The effort, however, faces an uphill battle in the state legislature, where Democrats control both chambers. Representatives John Block of Alamo Gordo and Stephanie Lord of Sandia Park this week launched a certificate form for lawmakers to sign calling for an extraordinary session to impeach Lujan Grisham over an executive order prohibiting carrying open or concealed firearms in public in Albuquerque and across Bernalillo County. For a little bit of a flashback, and I guess for people who aren't aware of the context, here's what the New Mexico governor said, I think, last week, which started this whole fiasco.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms.
A Democrat governor attempting to use executive power to simply strip citizens of their right to carry. You know, I can't think of too many things as unconstitutional as that. And it takes us right back to the Democrats' favorite word, you know, the word that they love to use over and over again, even when it clearly doesn't apply. Well, actually, it seems like Democrats only like to use this word when it doesn't apply, fascism, because if Democrats actually cared about fascism, well, they would probably be the ones actually leading the impeachment of Mrs. Grisham after her clear abuse of power and disregard for constitutional rights, but of course they are nowhere to be found. Folks, these are the people who call you a fascist, you authoritarian, the same people defending this woman, you know, the Democrat governor who views herself as the ultimate authority, above the Constitution and above police.
We just heard from the sheriff. He joins the attorney general and others who say they won't enforce it. It's unconstitutional. Why do it if it can't be enforced?
Well, that's their opinion. They have no bold actions. They don't have any plans for reducing gun violence.
But we also have, Governor, the Constitution of New Mexico and the Constitution of the United States, and you're an attorney. Do you think you're on solid constitutional ground here?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, look, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I had the right. I have the right.
Where is the right? Where is the right?
In the state of New Mexico. Public health, it's a suspension. It's not a ban. And we'll see what all of these court actions do. And
she claims that police departments and sheriffs have no right to tell her what is constitutional or not. She's a strong Democrat girl boss, and nobody can tell her what to do because the kids. Yeah, I don't know about you, but that seems awfully fascist to me. Because obviously, maybe the police can't tell you, but at some point the federal courts will certainly tell you that what Mrs. Grisham did, what the governor of New Mexico did, was obviously blatantly illegal and unconstitutional. People ought to be coming to their senses on this issue, folks. We are experiencing a slow march towards complete fascism. There is a leftist fascist dream that we are slowly walking to. to. Look, it may not be scary, hardcore fascism like Mussolini fascism, but it's fascism nonetheless. It's narcissistic, faux compassionate fascism. At the end of the day, it's fascism with a little cherry on top. It's fascism with a nice little smile. Compassion. That's all we ever hear. The kids. We're trying to do the right thing. And in order for us to do the right thing, we need to control what you say, what you see, where you're allowed to go, how you run your business. Cannot defend yourself. No, of course not. That is the first step towards fascism in any instance, to take away your ability to defend yourself against tyranny. There's a freaking textbook, folks. There is a list, and the Democrats check pretty much every single box on that list. Pay attention. We need to be seeing a mass awakening fast, or it's going to be too late. You know, a mass awakening like this guy had on national TV. Here's a great viral clip that's been bouncing around the internet of a news anchor kind of going off script back in 2022.
Let me say something that I've never said before in 40 years of broadcasting about my personal politics. I voted twice for Donald Trump because I thought him to be the less imperfect of two candidates. I am at heart a libertarian in the sense that I believe, as my grandfather once told me, quote, "In this country, you have the right to be left alone." Given the binary choice in the voting booth, I felt Donald Trump was closer to our constitutional foundation and the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness than either of his 2016 or 2020 Democratic opponents. I also believed Donald Trump was careless and responsible himself for many of his political troubles. But I'm deeply angry and resentful of anybody who suggests that I or anybody else who made that same binary choice in a voting booth should be labeled by today's president a semi-fascist. I've had good history teachers throughout my life. I know exactly what fascism is. At its most basic level, fascism embodies a consolidation of political power. It attempts to limit political opposition, and it mandates how and what private industry can produce. Given what's happening in our country today, the union of big tech with centralized government, the shadow banning of conservative opposition, the outright banning of those who question the efficacy of vaccine mandates, the banning of even a former U.S. president from speaking his voice on some platforms. All that is technically much closer to fascism than anything Donald Trump did. As we approach the midterms, look for Democrats to increase the frequency of the fascism accusations. Yesterday, the Washington Times reported, and I quote, "Democrats are tagging their Republican opponents with extreme labels ahead of the midterm elections and linking the party to violence, fascism, and Nazis." Another common trait of fascism is the fifth column, the agent provocateur, the person who infiltrates the opposition party, who wreaks havoc to make it appear the opposition is bent on threats, violence, and illegality. So when you see reports of the Nazi flag seen at some Governor Ron DeSantis or some other Republican rally, question it, just as you would question, say, Jussie Smollett or some other perpetrator of fake hate crimes, a phenomenon that is on the rise these days. Take nothing at face value. And finally, there is an informal law of rhetoric known as Godwin's Law. It posits that the first person in an argument who invokes history's worst episode, Nazism or fascism, as the equivalent to some present-day conflict, well, that person loses the argument.
That right there is the exact realization that people ought to be coming to. Fascist ambition under the guise of compassion is fascism nonetheless. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know we'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.